Morgan, if I would have told you that Ant would have 15 points and Cat would have 12 points in game 2 of a series against the Phoenix Suns, what would you say to me?
I would say they lost. There's no way they won.
Let's just start with Minnesota.
Just like that.
The T-Wolves take game 2. They are now up 2-0 after their 105-93 victory. Series heads back to Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
Just so impressive by Minnesota tonight, what they did defensively.
The score doesn't do it justice either.
Thank you. It was not close in the second half.
No. And again, another game that was not close. And you're exactly right. The way that this T-Wolves team plays defense on a Suns team that has so many offensive weapons.
Top heavy, but KD, Beal, Booker, you'd be like, oh, those guys are going to be a problem. Let's stick with Minnesota.
Okay, stick with Minnesota.
Defensively, what they do, I mean, you could just tell it's a team that, like, they've been together now for a couple of years, and you could see that chemistry. I think the one swing area in this game tonight was Cat picks up 3 fouls in the first quarter, and he has a couple of turnovers, and you're going, is this going to be one of those Cat games where he just kills Minnesota? They got through it. They got through it, and he made some plays in the second half, and didn't have a spectacular scoring night. But he was still impactful out there, and then the others show up. And that's the big difference in this series. Minnesota has others. The Suns don't have others. Jaden McDaniels, we know what he does defensively. He's dealing with KD, trying to make life difficult. He drops 25 in this game.
Well, and that's what's crazy to see because we always think of McDaniels as someone that gets up and guys can really be that big defender for the Minnesota Timberwolves along the perimeter. But Anthony Edwards tonight was that as well. I mean, there was that possession where Bradley Beal's coming down and he's just up in him. It ended up being a foul once he crossed half court, but you just heard the crowd get into it. The crowd was so excited to see that type of defensive effort, and it was there all night for this T-Wolves team, and you're exactly right. And then you see a guy like McDaniels also being able to contribute on the offensive end like he did tonight with those 25 points when some of their star players aren't necessarily having those 40-point games or anything. It was just even scoring along the starting unit.
And that's where you know, oh, Minnesota's legit. Where when you win playoff games like they did tonight.
Dominating.
That's legit.
Yep.
The other big thing for me comparing these two teams, how important a point guard is. Phoenix does not have a true point guard. And all offseason we heard, yeah, but Beal can handle. Kevin Durant can handle. Devin Booker can.
Can manage. And,
they can.
We've seen him do it before.
Sure. But Minnesota has Mike Conley, a vet that's been around the league for a long time. He's not going to dominate the ball, but good floor general, right? Yeah. A vet who has been in big playoff games for really good teams. He has 18 points tonight. 7 of 13 shooting. So on a night where, like, okay, Cat and Ant aren't dominating, like you said, you still have other guys that can contribute. And having a guy that can run a team a little bit matters.
Well, we were talking about this while we were watching that, especially toward the end, and we're like, what's the biggest difference with Minnesota? Obviously, you have these guys like Ant growing, maturing, taking leaps. But someone like Mike Conley over D'Lo, like that veteran leadership, that veteran point guard that knows how to lead, that knows how to manage, and then also the way that he's been able to contribute more and more on the offensive end, it's just been beautiful. I just think this T-Wolves team has a style of play that they all really buy into. Now, there are games and moments where Cat isn't buying in or he's just being a little bit of a
he's forcing maybe.
Whatever you want to put it. And it can become annoying. But what I like is that you're not seeing the rest of the team be annoyed. They know that he's going to do what he's going to do, and they're going to be like, okay, look, we still got to keep playing our style of basketball, even if he's going to play his at times. And there's times when he's sitting on the floor and the ball is moving a little bit faster. And there's times when he's coming back in and then he's knocking down some big shots.
He only played 23 minutes in this game because of the foul issues. He sat the entire second quarter. Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Another guy that, again, when they acquired him, I don't think anyone was going, hey, man, what a pickup for Minnesota. But he keeps improving. And he comes in and gives you 10 points off the bench, gives you some good energy, plays some good defense. It was just an impressive showing by Minnesota. I just thought defensively they were flying everywhere. You could tell the communication is great. And that goes to show you, by the way, continuity does matter. Yeah. This group has familiarity with each other now, and it's showing off in the biggest moments in the playoffs.
You know, the Suns finished with 40 points in the paint, but it wasn't that until the end, or until it got closer and closer into that fourth quarter, right? When they kept trying to make other things happen when they're already down by so much. But going back to the presence that is felt in the paint, as we already know with Rudy Gobert, it was just there tonight. The way that they can pack the paint with some of their big guys, with some of their long arms. I mean, this is something that you're seeing in the NBA just become such a factor for some of these teams that are in the postseason. And with the T-Wolves, it's a factor against a Suns team that, again, has such dynamic offensive players that still couldn't create and get to their spots.
The holy shit stat of this game. Ooh. The points off turnovers tonight.
Oh, yes.
31-2 in favor of Minnesota. Yes.
Jeez.
Phoenix, with the vets and the stars, had 20 turnovers. That turned into 31 Minnesota points in this game. On the other end, Minnesota had 14 turnovers. An okay number. Probably a little too high, ideally. But Phoenix mustered 2 points off those 14 turnovers. That's the swing stat of this game. And now as this series shifts back, it's insane to look at this number, Morgan.
What?
Both teams shot 44.9% in this game. They were both 35 of 78. Insane to see the difference in free throws that really swung it to. Minnesota 26 for 30 at the free throw line, and Phoenix was 15 of 19 at the line. So that's what swung the game. Minnesota only hit one more three, but it was the free throws that made a difference big time. Minnesota played aggressive. They played the right way. It was an impressive victory. Now the series shifts back to Phoenix, and Grayson Allen left this game. Hurt that same ankle, the one that messed with him in game one when the Suns lost by a ton. Yeah, he tweaked it again. It did not look good. He did not return. Who knows if he's going to return for game 3 of this series? I'd be shocked if he did. Look, Phoenix goes home. I guess they could win the next 2 and tie it up. Look, you have home court now. Maybe you can get something going, but it just doesn't feel like it's clicking. Devin Booker tonight had 6 turnovers. He looked like an inexperienced player out there. And this is what I think messes with me with the Suns team is they've got the experience. They don't look like the experienced team.
No. And the way that they don't, like we've mentioned, they're not capitalizing off of the 14 turnovers. You know, it only led to 2 points for this Phoenix team with experience. And on top of that, I mean, we talked about the way that they came into this game and the tone that was being set in that first quarter. The first thing that you said, you were like, the Suns team looks broken. They don't look like they belong right now. What's happening? They were shooting like 35% in that first quarter. Felt like Devin Booker was missing all of his shots. There was no flow. That's fine at times, you know, sometimes home crowd advantage, all the things. But they never found a flow throughout this game. They never could find a way to fight through it, to fight through this Minnesota Timberwolves good defense. And it's confusing at times when you look at that. So yes, now that they do head back home, you do question like, what can they shift? What can they adjust? But right now, when I take a step back and I look at the Suns team, I'm going, I don't think they're good enough right now.
Their guys have to be guys. Where Minnesota has enough depth that like Naz Reid could have a big game, right? Conley can have a big game if the other guys are off, right? You saw tonight with McDaniels. Who's having the big game if you have a night where KD has 18 points on 6 of 15. That's not good enough. Beal, 6 of 17. And then Booker, 6 of 13. He got 20 points, but he had 6 turnovers in this game. Who else is stepping up? Gordon could get it going, but if you're relying on Eric Gordon, the old man on the team, good luck. I mean,
he needs to be in his role. He needs to be in his role.
Exactly. So those guys have to be elite for them to have a chance. And then you just see stuff that's like, this team doesn't feel right. Like when Eubanks is forcing shots, Eubanks needs to be dunking the ball on pick and roll situations where he's butt naked, wide open, not like trying to go at Gobert.
It's not even trying.
He's going at Gobert.
It's not even trying to go at Gobert. It's literally getting the ball in the low post and trying to make a move on Gobert. And I'm like, where's this old school basketball coming from? And by the way, on one of the better defenders in this league, on Rudy Gobert, that it can get his hands up and block a shot. You saw him there at the end, even block a shot that Eubanks put up. But then on top of all that disrupted like 7 other shots. Not 7. How many did Eubanks ended up finishing with? He was 4 of 8, right? And just there's some shots down low where Eubanks is trying to get it high off the glass, and it's just like
that's not your game, man.
That's
looks not your game.
Childish at times, right? It's just not a pretty look for the Phoenix Suns, and you don't have any other guys stepping up. But Deuce, we say that, but you have 3 guys that should be figuring out. And how many times did we say the offense looks stagnant? You saw Beal with the ball.
But
and then
that's been the story all year.
You see Kevin Durant just standing there and not relocating anywhere. And you're just like, what is this style? It's ugly.
Those 3 did not play a lot together this year because Beal missed so much time. Guys were in and out. Okay, I think that impacts things. I think the lack of depth on this team, because it's top heavy, impacts things. This is why, like, building a team this way doesn't seem functional. This team could be out in the first round. This would be devastating for that organization. They don't have draft picks. They don't have cap space. Yeah. They're kind of stuck with what they have. Good luck. Like, this team's not good enough to win a championship at this point. Now, maybe something goes crazy, and the old man, Kevin Durant, who still has a lot left, is able to, put him on the back and drop 40 in game 3 and get him back in the series. But it needs to happen now. And I think the problem is not just losing the first 2. Mm-hmm. It's how lifeless they've looked at times.
That's it. It's how they've lost the first 2. Yep. And I will go back and say this because I think this is huge when you cover any team and you see how important some pieces are. Grayson Allen, out. He left this game with that ankle once again. We know what he can do with stretching out the floor. It allows more space to be in the middle, and then you can get that spray 3 to him in the corner, on a wing, wherever. We have seen that before. We know how dominant that can be, but that wasn't the story to this game. Like, that wasn't the biggest angle to this game. It was the way that 3 really good offensive players on this Sun squads do not play well together.
Yeah, it looked like a mess tonight.
It did.
And it looked like a mess in game 1. So it goes back to Phoenix in game 3. One other note, just the size of Phoenix matching up against the size with Cat and Gobert up front, and just the length on the wings too. You're like, I don't know how they match. Like, Royce O'Neal's trying to defend Cat at times. KD's trying to defend Cat at times. That's just a tough matchup.
But then look at the non-Ant minutes too that we were watching. Well, we're like
and that's when the game, right? They were able to separate in that stretch with Ant on the bench. So, man, I'm beyond impressed with Minnesota and how they've looked in the first 2 games, and just. I guess I shouldn't be surprised by Phoenix because we've seen this year, but the way they finished the season, it looked like they had a switch where there was some competitive fire. They had some big wins down the stretch with a tough schedule. We think about the game in Sacramento where
Bradley Beal had his best game of the year.
They gift wrapped that game, but
did they figure it out with him? And it's like
they closed well that in the regular season. But now it looks like a mess. Let us know in the comments. Do you think this series is over? Should we get the shovels out? Say rest in peace, Phoenix Suns. Do you still give them a shot? What adjustments do you think need to be made? How are you feeling about Minnesota? Let us know in the comments below. Hit the thumbs up and subscribe.
Deuce and Mo. Deuce and Mo. Deuce and Mo, they tell you what they know. Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo, the podcast